Everything you're ashamed of, that you're afraid of, everything you're embarrassed by, that you feel guilty about, that you were punished for. That's what makes up your shadow. And that's what lucid dreaming can bring supercharged healing to. And yes, of course, lucid dreaming can be used for pleasure, right? Flying, sex, eating, traveling, whatever. But let's be real, that's level 1 stuff. If you're ready to maximize the magic and the potential of the lucid dreaming space, then this 3-step system is going to help you to create more powerful experiences. Because these kinds of experiences, they don't just create sublime dream adventures, but they actually overflow into your waking life and have true transformative consequences. All it takes is your courage and your willingness. From this point, brave souls only, because I'm going to teach you how to summon your shadow. But first, it's essential in order for you to be able to do these 3 steps well, to have a little bit of context of what we're dealing with. All the ancient traditions that practice lucid dreaming know that working with what scares us is crucial. The Toltecs say that the 2 qualities required to be a lucid dreamer are courage and discipline, like being a dream warrior. And with the Tibetan Buddhists, once you've learned how to get lucid consistently and stabilize a dream, you turn your focus to the transformation of fear, deliberately working within the dreamscape to, find and transmute your inner fears. I personally like to work with the word shadow, just because I think in our culture we all have some kind of understanding of what it is, being a kind of a Jungian concept. And also that when you learn what the shadow actually is, it's a lot easier to realize you don't need to be afraid of it. Because your shadow isn't actually bad. It's just the aggregate of the qualities, the traits, the characteristics, the experiences that you were taught and conditioned to reject and to exile from your conscious psyche. And it's very personal to you. If, for instance, you grew up in a very conservative family, you may have taken all of your sexuality and pushed it into the shadow as sinful. Or let's say you grew up in a family where every time you sung as a child, your father got angry at you because it was annoying. You might have taken that singing and pushed it into the shadow as well. It's really anything that you're ashamed of or embarrassed by or think is wrong. The parts of ourselves that we haven't really accepted, the parts of ourselves that we try to cut off and put somewhere else. That's what makes up our shadow. And it can even be positive things. That's your golden shadow. So let's say, for instance, you were teased for being really smart at school. Or let's say you got a lot of unwanted attention for being sexy. You may have taken those parts of yourself and pushed them away in order to keep yourself safe. One aspect of my golden shadow that I worked with in a lucid dream was actually my inner storyteller, because I was bullied so much as a kid for talking too much. And in that dream, I found him stuffed in a little tiny back office where he'd been for like 30 years waiting for me to come and get him. And he actually had tears of gratitude running down his face when I came to integrate him. And that integration of that sort of golden shadow aspect really helped give me the courage to start sharing more, even for instance, like starting this YouTube channel. So have a think right now, what are some of the aspects of yourself that you may have exiled or cut off? That's your shadow. And the amazing thing is when you start to work with your shadow in the dream, you rediscover these incredible parts of yourself that you had abandoned long, long ago. And you get to integrate them using step 3, which means that they're no longer haunting you from the sidelines, but instead can become a healthy, witnessed, integrated part of the whole. This process of integrating all aspects of your psyche is what Jung called individuation. And the more whole you are, the more empowered you are, the more self-expressed you are, and ultimately, the more happy you are. And lucid dreaming really is a fast track, a visceral, personal simulator for meeting and integrating those aspects of your shadow and regaining their power and strength. So are you in? I'm going to teach you the 3 steps of how to summon and work skillfully with your shadow in a lucid dream. Step 1, summon a specific aspect of your shadow. These 3 steps work for any aspect of your shadow. So if you're a bit nervous about like summoning a scary aspect, work with your golden shadow to start and really build the confidence. Here are some examples of aspects of the shadow I've worked with in my dreams. Money shadow, love shadow, power shadow, shame shadow, doubt shadow, fear shadow, sexual shadow. I choose an area of my life that's important to me, and then I summon the shadow that's connected to it. And by doing that, I actually am able to work with anything that's blocked in that area. You can also just be broad and summon your shadow, but that's kind of like an open-ended ChatGPT prompt, and in that case, the dream mind will kind of make a decision for you on what it will bring to you to face. And of course, if you're summoning your shadow, there's also the possibility it will just bring you a representation of your whole shadow. So I recommend working with first aspects of your shadow and really getting a hang of it before taking on like a big, broad summoning like that. Once you know what you want to create a short, memorable dream prompt, something you're going to say to summon your shadow. So for instance, if I was working with the money shadow, I would prepare a prompt that just says, "Money shadow, come to me." Alternatively, you could do something like, "When I turn around, there will be a door. Behind that door will be my money shadow." You can figure it out for yourself, but you can try one of those two to start. The trick is that you want to be super clear and directive so the dream knows what you're wanting to meet and what you're wanting to work with. But don't make the mistake of stopping there, and most people do. They're so focused on like getting lucid and then just summoning the shadow that they don't even think about what comes next. So step 2 of this system is to prepare for your meeting. By the way, after step 3, I'm going to teach you how to specifically deal with scary shadow figures if they arise, because if that's the case, you might have to do that step first and then come back to this one. But if when you summon the aspect of your shadow, it's not like a wildly scary or super obvious shadow figure, I just have a practice of always asking and confirming, like, "Are you my money shadow?" and getting a verbal confirmation, because sometimes the first figure you stumble across isn't, and you need to look a little bit further or even, redo and re-say the dream prompt. So just as a rule of thumb, if it's not a crazy shadow ogre coming at you, just double check by getting that verbal confirmation. Are you my X shadow? But once you know it's them, what an incredible opportunity to learn about yourself. What do you want to ask it? Maybe you want to ask it, "Where do you come from?" Or "How did you end up in my shadow? What do you believe? How can I help you? How can I heal you?" Have a think about the kinds of questions that you would like to ask the aspect of your shadow to gain a deeper understanding. For instance, when I actually met my money shadow, she was this weird little lizard woman in like an accountant's outfit who worked numbers. And I asked her, I said, "Listen, what do you believe about money?" And she said to me, "Well, the minute you leave your desk, you stop making money and all your hair falls out." And it was interesting. I understood in that moment that, my money shadow, I had this belief that making money was tethered to time and hard work and struggle, and that in order to make money, some part of me believed that I had to suffer to the point of exhaustion and sickness. Luckily, I integrated the fuck out of her. And actually, at the end of the dream, she transformed into a beautiful, giant, golden Chinese dragon. And she said to me, "I am no longer a money worm. I am a wealth dragon." And the shadow integrations can be so beautiful and powerful. I'm going to teach you how to do that now. Step 3, integrate your shadow. This can be done in so many ways, and as you experiment with this, you'll find the way that makes the most sense for you. But the key here is kindness, unconditional love, non-judgment, acceptance. This is a radical act of fierce compassion to aspects of yourself that you have previously rejected. You can hug them, absorb them, make love to them. You can evaporate them into light, or simply just hold their hands, or, witness them and send love to them. And it can be so simple. I once asked a shadow aspect, "How can I help you?" He was this filthy, stinky man with tattered clothes, and he had his arms full of trash bags with like a hat on top. And he looked at me, he just said, "Can you please put my hat back on my head?" And I took the hat, and with all the tenderness and love and compassion I could muster, I just placed the hat back on his head, like redeeming him with some dignity and care. And in that moment, he completely transformed into this beautiful human being. And so just simple acts can be enough to integrate whatever you're working with. When you face and embrace these previously unloved aspects of yourself, I promise you will be moved and amazed by the ways that they transform and the way that it makes you feel to be reconnected again. Now, what if it's scary? Like, what if you're not exactly having a conversation with it? Like the massive bear that attacked me, or the hordes of zombies that I've faced, or the man that came at me with knives. Sometimes our shadow will present as something scary, and it's in those moments that all of our courage and our training comes to bear. First, remember that you are in a dream. This is where you want to keep your lucidity super sharp. If you're able to hold that this is a dream, that you are 100% safe, you will be able to bravely face and embrace whatever is coming at you. Second, be prepared. Have an immediate integration tool prepared to use in these kinds of moments. For me, I use the Ho'oponopono prayer. So if something scary is like coming at me, I grab it, I hug it, and I say this prayer, which is, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I'll just repeat that over and over again until the shadow aspect transforms. You'll likely figure out your own techniques with this too, but if you don't have one, use that Ho'oponopono prayer. It's super effective for everyone I've taught it to. Just saturate it with love. It will inevitably transform into something less terrifying or stop attacking you. And then you can just take its hand and ask it the questions that you prepared. I know this sounds a bit nuts, but some of the most moving emotional experiences of my life have been holding the hands of some of my darkest shadow figures and being able to ask them questions open-heartedly, being able to connect with them and integrate them. And at some point, you'll know when it feels right that it's time to integrate that aspect of your shadow, to embrace it, to dissolve it, to really just welcome that lost part of yourself home. And when you wake up from one of these shadow integration lucid dreams, it's with such a full bursting heart, like this incredible sense of energy, because you've just gone out and reclaimed an aspect of yourself. And that is a radical act of healing. But first, you want to make sure you have a solid dream mission plan so you can successfully execute these kinds of dreams. And you want to watch this video, I'll teach you everything about how to do that.